She was invited to her billionaire ex-husband's wedding by his cruel mother. Part 3. How their love story finally came full circle. Previously on Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Ava Mitchell's world was shattered 4 years ago when her mother-in-law Eleanor slapped her, then pretended to be the victim. Nicholas, blinded by loyalty to his mother, believed the lie and cast Ava aside without giving her a chance to defend herself. What he never knew was that Ava left pregnant with triplets, children he would never meet, until Eleanor made a fatal mistake, sending Ava an invitation to Nicholas's wedding with a cruel note. "You should see what real class looks like." Ava arrived at the wedding in her $500 million private jet with 3 4-year-olds, Noah, Grace, and Ethan, each bearing the unmistakable Carter gray eyes. The perfect society wedding crumbled as Nicholas came face to face with the children he never knew existed. In a shocking revelation, Nicholas admitted he had discovered the truth about his mother's lies months after Ava left but had been too ashamed to find her. In Part 2, we witnessed the aftermath of this dramatic confrontation. Nicholas and Ava began the delicate process of co-parenting, with Nicholas flying to San Francisco every other weekend to build relationships with his children. Noah remained cautious, while Ethan and Grace embraced their father more readily. Meanwhile, Eleanor made a surprising appearance at Horizon Technologies, humbling herself to ask for a chance to know her grandchildren. As Nicholas proved himself reliable and genuinely devoted to the triplets, something began to shift between him and Ava. Small moments of connection accumulated. A family dinner, honest conversations, and a tentative acknowledgement that perhaps there might still be something worth rebuilding between them. The part ended with Ava allowing Nicholas's hand to intertwine with hers, as they agreed to explore possibilities, slowly and carefully. Now, 6 months later, we witness how these tentative beginnings have blossomed into something neither of them dared to imagine possible. "Daddy, watch me," Grace called from the top of the slide, her dark curls bouncing as she waved enthusiastically. Nicholas looked up from where he was helping Ethan adjust his new kite, smiling broadly at his daughter. "I'm watching, princess. Show me how brave you are." As Grace slid down with a delighted squeal, Ava approached with 2 coffee cups, handing one to Nicholas. "She's fearless," she observed, watching as Grace immediately ran back to climb the ladder again. "Just like someone else I know. I seem to recall you were the one who suggested skydiving on our 3rd date," Nicholas reminded her with a grin, accepting the coffee gratefully. "And you turned green just watching the instructional video?" Ava laughed, the sound coming easily now where once there had been only careful politeness between them. 6 months had transformed their cautious co-parenting arrangement into something warmer, more natural. A genuine friendship rebuilding on the foundation of their shared love for the children. Nicholas had kept his promise to visit regularly, never missing a weekend regardless of business demands. He had established routines with each child, stargazing with Noah, robot building with Ethan, and reading adventures with Grace. More surprisingly, he had established a new routine with Ava as well. These quiet moments of connection while the children played, conversations that had gradually evolved from solely discussing the triplets to rediscovering each other as people. "How's the Singapore expansion going?" Nicholas asked, nodding toward the folder peeking from Ava's bag. Even on weekend park outings, she kept her work close, a habit he remembered from their marriage. "The regulatory hurdles are finally cleared," she replied. "We break ground on the new facility next month." "That's fantastic," Nicholas said with genuine enthusiasm. "The Asian market has been waiting for Horizon's technology. This could double your global footprint within a year." Ava studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. "You've been following our progress closely." "I follow everything you do," Nicholas admitted simply. "Both because I'm proud of you and because Carter Enterprises could learn a thing or two from Horizon's approach to ethical innovation." Before Ava could respond, Noah approached, his expression serious as always. At nearly 5, he had maintained his protective stance toward his mother, though his relationship with Nicholas had warmed considerably over the months. "Mom, can Dad come to my school presentation next week?" he asked, his gray eyes, so like Nicholas's, watching her carefully. "It's about space, and he knows more about black holes than you do." The simple request represented a significant milestone. Noah not only acknowledging Nicholas as dad, but actively wanting his involvement. Ava felt her heart swell with a complicated mixture of joy and bittersweetness. Of course he can, she assured her son, if his schedule allows. I'll be there, Nicholas promised immediately. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. Noah nodded, satisfied, then added casually, Grandmother asked if she could come too. I told her maybe. This was another development of the past months. Eleanor's careful, patient efforts to build relationships with the triplets. True to her word, she had approached this challenge with humility rather than entitlement, earning small moments of trust through consistent kindness and genuine interest in the children as individuals. We'll discuss it, Ava said, exchanging a glance with Nicholas. They had established a united approach to Eleanor's involvement, cautious inclusion with clear boundaries. As Noah ran off to join his siblings, Nicholas turned to Ava. Thank you, he said quietly, for allowing me to be part of these moments, for giving me the chance to know them. They're your children too, Ava replied simply. They deserve to have you in their lives. And you? Nicholas asked, his voice dropping slightly. What do you deserve, Ava? The question hung between them, loaded with months of rebuilding trust, of careful steps toward something neither had been ready to name. I deserve, Ava began, then paused, considering her words carefully. I deserve honesty, respect, partnership, things I've built my company on, things I've tried to teach our children. And love, Nicholas asked softly. Do you deserve that too? Ava met his gaze directly. Everyone deserves love, Nicholas. The question is whether they're willing to risk their heart to find it. Before he could respond, Ethan's excited voice called them both to witness his kite finally taking flight. The moment of vulnerability suspended as they returned to their roles as co-parents. The deeper conversation postponed but not forgotten. If you've ever wondered whether a broken heart can truly heal enough to love again, hit that like button. And if you believe that sometimes the longest journeys bring us exactly where we were meant to be all along, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for the conclusion of this powerful story about second chances and the courage it takes to trust again after betrayal. Later that evening, after the children were tucked into bed, Nicholas and Ava sat on her balcony, a space that had become their unofficial sanctuary for adult conversations away from little ears. What had once been awkward meetings between estranged ex-spouses had evolved into comfortable evenings where they could speak freely, rediscovering the intellectual connection that had first drawn them together years ago. I've been meaning to tell you, Nicholas said, swirling the glass of wine Ava had poured him. I'm restructuring Carter Enterprises' leadership. Ava raised an eyebrow, intrigued. That's a significant move. The board approved. Surprisingly, yes. After some initial resistance, Nicholas smiled slightly. It seems my newfound backbone has earned their respect, or at least their cautious cooperation. What kind of restructuring? Ava asked, genuinely curious. Nicholas had mentioned making changes at his company over the past months, but this sounded more substantial. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations, he explained. Promoting Rajiv Patel to COO with a clear path to CEO within 2 years. I'll transition to executive chairman, focusing on long-term strategy and innovation rather than quarterly profits. Ava studied him with surprise. The Nicholas she had married had been obsessively hands-on with his company, unwilling to delegate even minor decisions. That's unexpected. What prompted this? Nicholas's expression softened as he looked toward the hallway where the triplets' bedrooms were located. These past 6 months have clarified my priorities in ways I never anticipated. I don't want to be the father who misses school presentations because of board meetings. I don't want work to be my excuse for missing their lives the way it was my excuse for not finding you 4 years ago. And the board is on board with this family-first CEO? Ava asked, remembering the cutthroat corporate culture at Carter Enterprises. They're on board with a CEO who's finally thinking beyond the next quarter to legacy and sustainability, Nicholas replied. Though I admit, Mother's support was surprisingly instrumental in convincing the old guard. Eleanor advocated for you to work less? Ava couldn't hide her skepticism. The Eleanor she remembered had always pushed Nicholas to prioritize the company above all else. Nicholas nodded, a hint of wonder in his voice. She told the board that Carter Enterprises needed to evolve beyond the model my father established. The absent workaholic who builds empires but misses his child's life. She said the true Carter legacy should be balance, not sacrifice. She's changed, Ava acknowledged softly. The past 6 months had revealed sides of Eleanor Carter that Ava had never imagined existed. Vulnerability, regret, and a genuine desire to make amends. We all have, Nicholas replied, his gaze meeting hers across the small table. Some changes more profound than others. The air between them shifted, charged with unspoken possibilities. Over months of co-parenting, of careful conversations and gradually lowered defenses, something had been rebuilding between them. Trust, respect, and perhaps something deeper that neither had been ready to name. Noah calling you Dad today, Ava said, changing the subject slightly. That's a big step for him. Nicholas's face lit up at the reminder. I noticed that too. I was trying not to make too much of it. But it means everything, Ava finished for him. He's the most cautious of the three, the most protective of me. For him to accept you this way. I know, Nicholas said quietly. I don't take it lightly, Ava. Any of this, the trust you've placed in me, the relationships I'm building with them. I know how easily it could have gone differently. Ava nodded, remembering the anger and hurt she had carried for so long. If you had found me when you discovered the truth about your mother's lies, if you had come after me then, would you have forgiven me? Nicholas asked the question that had clearly haunted him. I don't know, Ava admitted honestly. I was so hurt, so angry, and then when I found out about the pregnancy, those feelings only intensified. I felt like you had abandoned not just me, but them too, even though you didn't know they existed. I abandoned all of you, Nicholas acknowledged, pain evident in his voice, through cowardice disguised as pride. It's my greatest regret. And yet, Ava said softly, here we are. Here we are, Nicholas echoed, his eyes holding hers. Against all odds. A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with the night sounds of the city below and the weight of their shared history. Both the painful parts and the healing that had gradually taken place. I should go, Nicholas said finally, though he made no move to stand. These evening conversations had been growing longer each weekend, neither of them quite ready to end them. You could stay, Ava found herself saying, the words surprising them both. In the guest room, she clarified quickly. It's late, and you'd be here for breakfast with the children. They'd love that. Nicholas studied her face carefully, searching for any sign of reluctance. Are you sure? I wouldn't have offered if I wasn't, Ava replied with the directness that had always characterized her. We're both adults, Nicholas. We can share a living space for one night without it being complicated. But as she showed him to the guest room, providing a spare toothbrush and towels with the efficiency of a natural hostess, Ava acknowledged to herself that things between them were already complicated. Had been from the moment she stepped off that jet with their children at his wedding. The question wasn't whether complications existed, but whether they were finally ready to navigate them together rather than apart. The next morning brought a new kind of domesticity, Nicholas making pancakes with the children while Ava prepared coffee, the five of them around the breakfast table as if this were their normal routine rather than a first. The triplets were delighted by their father's overnight presence, especially when he revealed he had time to take them to the Science Museum before his flight back to New York. You're welcome to join us, Nicholas told Ava as the children raced to get dressed. Unless you have work. Actually, I'm free today, Ava replied, surprising herself with how easily she made the decision to set aside her usual Sunday work session. I'd like to come. The day unfolded with a natural rhythm that felt both new and familiar. The five of them exploring the museum exhibits, sharing lunch at the cafe, taking photos that looked remarkably like those of any normal family enjoying a weekend outing. Several times, Ava caught Nicholas watching her with an expression of wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe they had found their way to this moment. It was during the planetarium show, as they sat in darkness watching stars while overhead, that Nicholas's hand found hers between their seats. Unlike their previous tentative touches, this felt deliberate, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that asked a question. Ava didn't pull away. Instead, she returned the gentle pressure, answering without words. The weeks that followed brought subtle but significant shifts in their relationship. Nicholas began staying in the guest room during his weekend visits, creating a new family routine that included Sunday breakfasts and outings together. Their conversations extended beyond co-parenting to include their work, their dreams, their reflections on how they had each changed during their years apart. Eleanor's visit for Noah's school presentation marked another milestone, the first time all three generations had appeared together publicly. The society pages noted the apparent reconciliation between Ava Mitchell and the Carter family, speculating about what it might mean for both Horizon Technologies and Carter Enterprises. "They're calling us the tech world's most intriguing family drama," Marcus commented, showing Ava the business magazine featuring a photo of her, Nicholas, Eleanor, and the triplets leaving Noah's school. "The stock is up 12% just on rumors of a potential collaboration between Horizon and Carter." "There is no collaboration," Ava replied firmly, though the seed of an idea had been planted during recent conversations with Nicholas about their company's complementary technologies. "Maybe there should be," Marcus suggested carefully. "From a purely business perspective, a strategic partnership could accelerate Horizon's global expansion plans by years." Ava gave him a measured look. "And from a personal perspective?" Marcus, who had stood by her through the darkest days after her divorce and throughout the building of Horizon, smiled slightly. "From a personal perspective, I haven't seen you this centered, this genuinely happy, in all the time I've known you. Whatever is happening between you and Nicholas Carter, it seems to be good for you, and definitely good for the triplets." The observation stayed with Ava as she prepared for an important presentation to potential investors in Tokyo. Horizon was growing rapidly, but the next phase of expansion would require significant capital. Capital that a partnership with Carter Enterprises could provide without sacrificing Horizon's independence or vision. The night before her departure, Nicholas called as he did every evening when they were apart, another new routine that had developed naturally over recent months. "I was thinking," he said after they had discussed the Children's Day and her upcoming trip, "what if I met you in Tokyo? Not for the presentation," he added quickly. "That's all you. But afterward, we could take a few days, just the two of us. No children, no work, no past hanging over us. Just Nicholas and Ava getting to know who we are now." The suggestion caught Ava off guard, not because it was unwelcome, but because it represented a step beyond the careful boundaries they had established. This wouldn't be co-parenting or practical logistics. This would be a deliberate choice to explore what might exist between them as a man and woman, not just as parents to the same children. "What about the triplets?" she asked, buying time to process her own reaction to the idea. "Mother has been asking for a chance to have them for a weekend," Nicholas replied. "With your approval, of course, and with their regular nanny staying to maintain their routine. It would be a controlled test of how that relationship is progressing." Ava considered the suggestion. Eleanor had indeed been consistently respectful of boundaries over the past months, gradually earning small measures of trust through her interactions with the children. A supervised weekend might be a reasonable next step, and the thought of time alone with Nicholas, away from their complex history and daily responsibilities, held an undeniable appeal. "Yes," she said finally, "to both. I think it's time." The Tokyo presentation was a triumph, with investors responding enthusiastically to Horizon's vision and Ava's confident leadership. But as successful as the business portion of her trip had been, it was the sight of Nicholas waiting for her in the hotel lobby afterward that quickened her pulse. He looked different somehow, more relaxed than she had seen him in years, dressed casually in jeans and a simple button-down rather than his usual corporate armor. When he spotted her, his face lit up with a smile that transported Ava back to the early days of their relationship, before Eleanor's interference and their own mistakes had complicated everything. "Congratulations," he said, stepping forward to greet her. "The business channels are already reporting that you secured full funding for the expansion." News travels fast, Ava replied, suddenly aware of how natural it felt to have him here, sharing this moment of professional triumph. I may have been monitoring the situation closely, Nicholas admitted with a smile. I'm proud of you, Ava. What you've built with Horizon is extraordinary. Thank you, she said simply, accepting the compliment without deflection. Another change from the woman she had been during their marriage, always uncomfortable with praise. Their 3 days in Tokyo unfolded like a rediscovery. Of the city, of each other, of possibilities neither had allowed themselves to fully consider until now. They visited temples and gardens, sampled local cuisine at tiny restaurants far from tourist paths, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. On their final evening, as they walked through a serene garden illuminated by traditional lanterns, Nicholas stopped beneath a blooming cherry tree. I've been thinking about something you said months ago, he began, his expression serious in the soft light. About what you deserve. Honesty, respect, partnership. Ava nodded, remembering the conversation in the park. And love, she added softly. You asked if I deserved that too. You do, Nicholas said, taking her hands in his. You deserve all of it, Ava. And I know I forfeited the right to be the one to give those things to you when I failed you so completely 4 years ago. But these past months, watching you with our children, rebuilding this connection between us, I've fallen in love with you all over again. Not with who you were when we were married, but with who you are now. Stronger, more confident, more fully yourself than I ever allowed you to be before. Ava felt her heart racing, emotions she had kept carefully controlled for so long rising to the surface. Nicholas, I'm not asking for anything, he continued gently. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens between us going forward, whether we remain co-parents and friends, or whether there might someday be more, I want you to know that you are loved. Completely, for exactly who you are. In the quiet garden, with Tokyo's lights twinkling beyond the trees and the scent of cherry blossoms surrounding them, Ava made a decision. She had rebuilt herself from the broken woman who had left the Carter mansion 4 years ago. She had created a company, raised 3 children, and reclaimed her power and confidence. She was whole on her own terms, and perhaps that was why she could now choose to let Nicholas back into her heart. Not from need or weakness, but from strength and the wisdom that comes from having survived the worst and thrived despite it. I've been afraid, she admitted, her voice steady despite the emotion behind her words. Afraid to trust again, afraid to be vulnerable. But I'm not that scared, broken person anymore. And you're not the man who let his mother dictate his choices. She stepped closer, her eyes holding his. I don't know what the future holds for us, Nicholas, but I'm willing to find out. Slowly, carefully, with our eyes wide open this time. Nicholas's smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. That's all I could hope for, he said softly, and then, with a questioning look that asked permission, he leaned forward. Their kiss was gentle, tentative. Not a rekindling of old passion but the beginning of something new, built on stronger foundations than before. When they finally drew apart, Ava felt a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place that had been scattered for too long. We should get back, she said, though she made no move to step away from him. Check on the children. Nicholas nodded, keeping her hand in his as they turned back toward the hotel. How do you think they'll react to us exploring this possibility? Grace will be thrilled, Ava predicted with a smile. Ethan will have practical questions about logistics. And Noah will be protective of you, Nicholas finished. As he should be. We'll take it one day at a time, Ava said. Just as we have been. No rushing, no pressure. The children come first. Always, Nicholas agreed. But that doesn't mean we can't build something for ourselves alongside being their parents. As they walked hand in hand through the peaceful garden, Ava reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From bitter betrayal to cautious co-parenting to this new beginning. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better, something real. 2 people who had hurt each other deeply finding their way back to each other through growth, forgiveness, and the shared love of the children who connected them forever. If you believe that true strength lies in the courage to open your heart again after it's been broken, hit that like button. And if you've ever experienced how the most beautiful new beginnings can sometimes grow from the ashes of what once seemed like endings, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Because this story of second chances and hard-earned wisdom is about to come full circle in a way that will remind us all that sometimes, the longest journeys lead us exactly where we were meant to be all along. 1 year later, the rooftop garden of Horizon Technologies headquarters glowed with soft lights as the sun set over San Francisco Bay. White chairs arranged in neat rows faced an arch woven with jasmine and roses, while musicians played quietly as guests found their seats. It wasn't a large gathering, just family and close friends assembled to witness a moment that once seemed impossible. In a room just off the garden, Ava Mitchell stood before a mirror, Grace beside her adjusting the simple crown of flowers in her mother's hair. "You look beautiful, Mommy," Grace declared, her face solemn with the responsibility of being her mother's official stylist for the day. Ava smiled at her daughter's reflection. At 6, Grace had developed her mother's eye for detail and her father's confidence in expressing opinions. "Thank you, sweetheart. Are your brothers ready?" "Noah is making sure Daddy's tie is straight," Grace reported importantly. "And Ethan is practicing with the rings. He's walked around the whole room 12 times without dropping them." 12 times. Ava raised an eyebrow, amused. "That sounds very thorough." "He says statistical probability requires multiple trials," Grace explained, repeating her brother's words with perfect seriousness. A knock at the door interrupted them, and Eleanor Carter entered, elegant in a pale blue ensemble that complemented rather than competed with Ava's simple ivory dress. "The guests are seated," Eleanor announced, then paused, her expression softening as she took in the sight of Ava. "You look radiant, my dear." The relationship between the two women had evolved remarkably over the past year. What began as cautious tolerance for the children's sake had gradually transformed into genuine respect and, eventually, something approaching friendship. Eleanor had proven her commitment to change through consistent actions, respecting boundaries, supporting Ava's parenting decisions, and most significantly, encouraging Nicholas to forge his own path rather than following the Carter script. "Are you nervous?" Eleanor asked, adjusting a flower in Grace's hair that had come slightly loose. "Surprisingly, no," Ava replied truthfully. "It feels right, like we've earned this moment." Eleanor nodded, understanding in her eyes. "You have. Both of you." She hesitated, then added, "I want you to know how grateful I am to be included today. After everything." "The past is the past," Ava said simply. "We're building something new now. All of us." A second knock heralded Marcus's arrival. "It's time," he announced with a warm smile for Ava. "Everyone's ready when you are." As Eleanor led Grace out to take her place, Marcus offered Ava his arm. "You know," he said quietly, "when you showed up at my apartment 4 years ago, pregnant and heartbroken, I never imagined we'd be here someday." "Neither did I," Ava admitted, remembering those dark days when survival had been her only goal. "Life takes unexpected turns." "Speaking of unexpected," Marcus said as they prepared to step outside, "have you told Nicholas about Tokyo yet?" Ava's hand instinctively went to her stomach, still flat beneath the flowing lines of her dress. "Tonight, after the ceremony. It's the perfect time." The music shifted as they stepped onto the rooftop, guests rising as Ava appeared. But Ava's eyes were drawn immediately to the front, where Nicholas stood waiting beside the officiant, Noah and Ethan flanking him like miniature groomsmen in their matching suits. Nicholas's face as he saw her was everything: wonder, joy, love, and a hint of disbelief that this moment was actually happening. The journey from that devastating day in the Carter mansion to this rooftop garden had been long and often difficult, filled with hard conversations, careful boundary setting, and the gradual rebuilding of trust that had once seemed irreparably broken. As Ava reached him, Nicholas took her hands in his eyes never leaving hers. "You're sure?" he whispered, giving her one final chance to reconsider. "More sure than I've ever been," she replied, squeezing his hands gently. The ceremony was simple and deeply personal. Instead of traditional vows, Nicholas and Ava had written letters to each other, acknowledging both the painful past and the hopeful future they were choosing to build together. Ava, Nicholas began, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. For years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life when I chose pride and blind loyalty over the truth of what we had built together. I lost you, and I nearly lost the chance to know our children. That failure will always be part of our story. He paused, his gaze holding hers intently. But our story didn't end there. Through your strength and courage, through your willingness to give second chances even when they weren't deserved, we found our way back to each other. Not as the people we were, but as the people we've become, wiser, more honest, more aware of what truly matters. Nicholas glanced at the triplets, who watched with solemn attention from the front row. I promise to honor this second chance every day, to be the partner you deserve, one who listens, who respects your independence, who celebrates your strength rather than feeling threatened by it. I promise to be the father our children need, present, supportive, teaching them through example rather than just words. And I promise to love you completely, not despite our difficult past, but including it as part of the complex, beautiful journey that brought us here. Ava blinked back tears as she unfolded her own letter. Nicholas, when I arrived at your wedding a year and a half ago, I came seeking closure, a final chapter to a painful story. What I found instead was a new beginning I hadn't dared to imagine possible. She smiled softly, remembering that dramatic day. Our path back to each other hasn't been easy or straightforward. We've had to relearn trust, to communicate honestly about hurt and hope, to find ways to blend our separate lives into something that works not just for us, but for Noah, Grace, and Ethan. Ava's voice strengthened as she continued. I promise to approach our future with the same courage and honesty that helped us heal our past. To remember that true partnership means supporting each other's dreams, respecting each other's boundaries, and choosing each other every day. Not out of obligation or habit, but from genuine love and commitment. I promise to keep building our family on a foundation of truth, respect, and the understanding that the strongest bonds are those that have been tested and proven resilient. As they exchanged rings, Ethan performing his role with meticulous care, the officiant invited the triplets to join them for the final blessing. The five of them stood together, hands joined, as the officiant spoke words about family bonds that transcend traditional definitions, about love that heals rather than possesses, about the courage it takes to forgive and the wisdom it requires to build something new from the lessons of the past. By the power vested in me, the officiant concluded, I now pronounce you husband and wife again. Nicholas, you may kiss your bride. As their lips met, sealing promises both spoken and unspoken, applause erupted from the gathered guests. But the most meaningful response came from Noah, who had been the most cautious about this reconciliation, the most protective of his mother's heart. He was smiling now, genuine joy replacing the wariness that had characterized his relationship with Nicholas for so long. The celebration that followed was as intimate as the ceremony. Dinner under the stars, toasts from friends who had supported them through both the painful separation and the careful reunion, and a first dance that felt like both a remembrance and a new beginning. Happy? Nicholas asked as they swayed together, the city lights twinkling below them like earthbound stars. Very, Ava confirmed, resting her head against his shoulder. And I have something to tell you that might make you even happier. Nicholas pulled back slightly to see her face, curiosity in his eyes. What is it? Remember our trip to Tokyo last month? For the Horizon Carter joint venture launch. Ava's eyes sparkled with secret joy. We brought back more than just a business partnership. Nicholas's expression shifted from confusion to dawning realization. Are you saying? I'm pregnant, Ava confirmed softly, just about 8 weeks along. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. For a moment, Nicholas seemed unable to speak, overwhelmed by emotion. Then he gathered her close again, his voice thick as he whispered, This time I get to be there from the beginning. For everything. For everything, Ava agreed, thinking of all they had missed with the triplets. The first ultrasound, the first kicks, the birth itself. This time would be different. This time they would experience it together. Later, as the evening wound down, Ava found herself standing at the edge of the rooftop garden with Eleanor, both watching as Nicholas spun Grace in a playful dance, while Noah and Ethan attempted to copy their father's moves. "I owe you an apology," Eleanor said quietly, her gaze still on her son and grandchildren. "A proper one after all this time." Ava turned to her, surprised. "You've apologized before, Eleanor. Multiple times, in fact. For specific actions, yes. For the slap, for the lies, for sending that wedding invitation." Eleanor shook her head slightly. "But not for the root of it all, for failing to see who you truly were from the beginning. For being so blinded by my own prejudices and fears that I couldn't recognize how perfect you were for my son." The admission, coming on this day of all days, touched Ava deeply. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means a great deal." Eleanor smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression that had once been rare but now appeared regularly, especially around the children. "I told Nicholas earlier, but I wanted to tell you as well. I'm stepping down from the Carter Foundation board. I'm passing my position to you, if you'll accept it." Ava's surprise must have shown on her face, because Eleanor continued quickly. "The Foundation's work in educational access aligns perfectly with Horizon's mission. And more importantly, you understand what it means to build something meaningful, something that outlasts us. The Carter legacy should be about more than just business success or social position. It should be about positive impact." Before Ava could respond, Nicholas approached with Grace in his arms, the little girl's head drooping sleepily against her father's shoulder. "I think we've reached the end of the celebration for our youngest guests," he said, nodding toward where Noah and Ethan were also showing signs of exhaustion despite their attempts to hide it. "Perfect timing," Ava replied, exchanging a meaningful glance with Eleanor. "We were just finishing an important conversation." As they gathered the children and prepared to leave for the honeymoon suite at the Four Seasons, where the triplets would spend one night with them before going to stay with Eleanor while Nicholas and Ava took a proper honeymoon, Ava felt a profound sense of completion. Not an ending, but a circle closing, making room for new beginnings within its protective curve. 4.5 years ago, she had walked away from Nicholas Carter with nothing but her broken heart and the unknown lives growing inside her. She had rebuilt herself from that shattered place, creating a company and raising children who were her greatest joy. She had proven she didn't need Nicholas to complete her life. She had made it whole on her own terms. And perhaps that was why this reunion worked, why this second chance at marriage felt so different from the first. They came together now not from need or convenience or social expectation, but from genuine choice. Two whole people deciding that life was better shared than separate, that love was worth the risk of vulnerability, that some bridges, once rebuilt, could be stronger than they were before the breaking. As they drove away from the celebration, the triplets already half asleep in the back seat, Nicholas reached across to take Ava's hand. "Full circle," he said softly, understanding in his eyes as he glanced at her still flat stomach where their newest miracle was just beginning. "Not a circle," Ava corrected gently, intertwining her fingers with his. "A spiral. We're not back where we started. We're in a similar place but higher up, with a better view and a clearer understanding of the journey." Nicholas smiled, lifting their joined hands to press a kiss against her knuckles. "Wiser words were never spoken, Mrs. Carter Mitchell." "That CEO Carter Mitchell to you?" Ava replied with a teasing smile, her free hand resting lightly on her stomach where their future grew, a promise of new adventures to come. In the back seat, Grace stirred slightly. "Are we a real family now?" she asked sleepily. Ava turned to look at her daughter, at all three of her beautiful children. The unexpected gifts that had come from her greatest heartbreak. "We've always been a real family, sweetheart," she said softly. "We just needed some time to figure out what that meant for us." As the car carried them toward their future, Ava Mitchell, now Ava Carter Mitchell once again, but on her own terms this time, felt the weight of the past finally lift completely. The invitation that had arrived on her desk that day, meant to humiliate and wound, had instead set in motion a journey of healing and redemption none of them could have imagined. Sometimes, she reflected, the cruelest intentions could lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Sometimes the longest detours brought you exactly where you were meant to be all along. And sometimes, just sometimes, what appeared to be an ending was actually the first step toward a new beginning more wonderful than you dared to dream possible. If this story has touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you witnessed the power of forgiveness in your own life? Have you experienced how time and growth can transform even the deepest wounds into sources of wisdom and strength? Remember that in life's most difficult chapters, we often find the courage to write our most beautiful endings, or perhaps more accurately, our most promising new beginnings. Until next time, this is Mr. Harrison, reminding you that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to give second chances, especially to those who have earned them through genuine change and consistent effort to make things right.